אהלן, שלום, מה העניינים? יאללה, שיחת משקיעים התחילה, בואו נראה ונשמע.
But that is the real reason for the protests. The actual reason is that those receiving the waste and fraud wish to continue receiving it.
כרגע
That
אילון
is
מאסק
the real
מדבר על
thing
התפקיד
that's
שלו
going on here,
בדודג'
obviously.
ובכל הסיבות למה
Now
טסלה
that said, I do think
קיבלה
there's
סטירה ברבעון הראשון ברמת המניות, בגלל ההתקפות
the large
הבלתי
slug of work necessary to get the Doge
נשלטות
team in
על
place
טסלה
and
מצד
working in
פעילים
the
פוליטיים.
government to get the financial house in order is mostly done. And I think starting probably in next month, May, my time allocation to Doge will drop significantly.
חודש הבא
I'll
במאי
have to
הוא
continue
מתחיל
doing
להוריד
it for,
פרופיל בדודג', הוא
I think,
ימשיך להיות שם,
probably the
להוריד
remainder of
פרופיל.
the president's term, just to make sure that the waste and fraud that we stop does not come roaring back, which it will do if it has the chance. So I think I'll continue to spend, a day or two per week on
יום או שתיים בשבוע
government matters, for as long as the
בעניינים
president would like me to
ממשלתיים,
do so, and as long as it is useful.
אבל הוא הולך להוריד פרופיל
But starting next
באופן
month,
משמעותי
I'll be
ממאי.
allocating far more of my time to Tesla, and now that the major work of establishing the Department of Government Efficiency is done. So at Tesla, we've gone through many a crisis over the years, and actually been through many. I think we're on the ragged edge of death, at least maybe a dozen times. It's been so many times. This is not one of those times. We're not on the ragged edge of death, not even close. But there are some challenges, and I expect that this year will be there'll probably be some unexpected bumps this year. But I remain extremely optimistic about the future of the company. The future of the company is fundamentally based on large-scale autonomous cars and large-scale, in large volume, vast numbers of autonomous humanoid robots. So the value of a company that makes truly useful autonomous humanoid robots and autonomous useful vehicles at scale, at low cost, which is what Tesla is going to do, is staggering. I continue to believe that Tesla, with excellent execution, will be the most valuable company in the world by far.
מאמין שטסלה תהיה החברה הכי יפה
בעולם,
במידה והם יצליחו לבצע נכון, להוציא לפועל נכון את כל החזון, והם בינתיים עושים את זה נהדר.
I think Tesla will be the most valuable company in the world by far. It may be as valuable as the next 5 companies combined.
יש מצב שהיא תהיה שווה יותר מחמשת החברות הכי מצליחות ביחד. ככה הוא רואה את זה.
But there'll be a few bumps along the road before that happens.
יהיו מאמרות בדרך
עד שזה יקרה,
אבל הוא יכול לראות את זה קורה.
We'll start to see the prosperity of autonomy take effect in a material way around the middle of next year. We still expect to be selling fully autonomous rides in June in Austin, as we've been saying for now several months. So that's continued. But the real question from a financial standpoint is, when does it really become material and affect the bottom line of the company, and start to be a fundamental part of when does it move the financial needle in a significant way? That's probably around the middle of next year, second half of next year. And then once it does start move the financial needle in a significant way, it will really go exponential from there. So that's, I'd encourage people to look beyond like the, you know,
צמיחה אקספוננציאלית צפויה.
some sort of bumps and potholes of the road immediately ahead of us, but lift your gaze to the bright shining, you know, citadel on a hill. I don't know, some Reagan-esque imagery, and that's where we're headed, and not too distant future, like I said, end of next year type thing. So, let's see. With respect to supply chain risk, something that Tesla has been working on for several years is to localize supply chains. This actually makes sense from a cost standpoint, and from a logistics risk standpoint. Is to have the supply chains be at least located on the continent in which the car is built. And so we are, I think, the least affected car company with respect to tariffs, at least in most respects. I mean, it remains to be seen. Now tariffs are still, tough on a company when margins are still low.
ההספקה הטכנית של כל מה שצריך
We
בשביל
do
טסלה,
have localized supply
בגלל
chains
שטסלה
in
נמצאת
North America, Europe,
בארבע
and
יבשות
China.
שונות, 3 יבשות שונות,
That puts us in a stronger
והם
position
סוג
than
של
any of our competitors.
מביאים את ההספקה שלהם הטכנית מכל מדינה ומדינה, ואפילו יש להם גיבוי של 2 מקורות לכל מפעל, אומר שהם פחות ייפגעו ברמת המכסים.
And undoubtedly, I'm going to get a lot of questions about tariffs. And I just want to emphasize that the tariff decision is entirely up to the President of the United States. I will weigh in with my advice with the President, which he will listen to my advice, but then it's up to him, of course, to make his decision. I've been on the record many times saying that I believe lower tariffs are generally a good idea for prosperity, but this decision is fundamentally up to the elected representative of the people, being the President of the United States. So, you know, I'll continue to advocate for lower tariffs rather than higher tariffs, but that's all I can do. Now let me walk you through why I'm so excited about the future of Tesla. So first of all, autonomy. The team and I are laser focused on bringing robotaxi to Austin in June. Unsupervised autonomy will first be solved for the Model Y in Austin. And then actually we should parse out the terms robotic taxi or robotaxi and just generally like what's the Cybercab, because we've got a product called the Cybercab, and then but any Tesla, which could be an S3, X or Y that is autonomous, is a robotic taxi or robotaxi. It's a bit confusing.
בגדול אוטונומית, אבל יש את הרובוטקסי שזה רכב יהודי. כל טסלה שנמצאת אי שם בחוץ יכולה להיות אי פעם מתישהו מונית אוטונומית.
And as we're going from, once we can make the system work where you can have paid rides fully autonomously with no one in the car in one city, that is a very scalable thing for us to go broadly within whatever jurisdiction allows us to operate. So because what we're solving for is a general solution to autonomy, not a city-specific solution for autonomy. Once we make it work in a few cities, we can basically make it work in all cities in that legal jurisdiction. So if it's, once we can make it work in a few cities in America, we can make it work anywhere in America. Once we can make it work in a few cities in China, it can work anywhere in China, likewise in Europe, limited only by regulatory approvals.
כנראה לא מתים על הווייב הגמגמני
so
שלו, הוא מדבר בלי
this is the advantage
התלהבות.
of having a generalized solution using artificial intelligence and an AI chip that Tesla designed specifically for this purpose, as opposed to very expensive sensors and high precision maps of a particular neighborhood where that neighborhood
אז אין
may change
צורך
for often changes,
ליידרים,
and then
רדרים,
the car
לייזרים,
stops working.
זה הכל
So
מצלמות,
a general solution instead
והיכולת
of a
מחשוב
specific solution.
שטסלה יצרה לעצמה, ככה שבאמת הפתרון הוא פתרון גלובלי, כללי, אין פה עניין של מיפוי מראש לשום דבר, לשום עיר, זה רק יהיה עניין רגולטורי.
About Optimus, making good progress in Optimus.
התקדמות טובה
We expect
באופטימוס,
to
הרובוט האנושי.
have thousands of Optimus robots working in Tesla factories by the end of this year,
אלפי
doing useful work.
רובוטים אנושיים יעבדו במפעלי טסלה עד סוף השנה.
And we expect to scale Optimus up faster than any product, I think, in history,
המטרה היא להגדיל את כושר הייצור של
to get to
אופטימוס
millions of units per
באופן
year
הכי מהיר
as
שיש
soon as
מכל
possible.
שאר
I
המוצרים
think
שלהם, והדגש
feel confident
כרגע
in getting to
על
a million
לייצר
units per year in
כמויות
less than 5 years,
של רובוטים.
maybe 4 years. So by 2030, I feel confident in predicting 1 million Optimus units per year.
עד 2030
It might be
הוא מאמין
2029.
שזה יקרה,
So
שעד
let's see,
2030
with
יהיה
respect to
מיליון
energy
רובוטים
business
אנושיים
is doing
מיוצרים
very well.
בשנה, והוא מאמין שזה עוד קצת
The
יקרה
mega
לפני.
pack enables utility companies to output far more total energy than would otherwise be the case. When you think of the energy capability of a grid, it's much more than say total energy output per year. If the power plants could operate at peak power
על חטיבת האנרגיה.
for all 24 hours, as opposed to being at half power or sometimes a quarter power at night, then you could double the energy output of existing power plants. But in order to do that, you need to buffer the energy so that you can charge up something like battery pack at night and then discharge into the grid during the day. So this is a massive unlock on total energy output of any given grid over the course of a year. And utility companies are beginning to realize this and are buying our mega packs at scale. So at this point, a gigawatt class battery is quite a common thing. So we have many orders in the hopper for gigawatt and beyond batteries. And we expect the stationary energy storage business to scale ultimately to terawatts.
הוא מאמין שבסופו של דבר הגדילה של חטיבת האנרגיה תתחיל להימדד בטראבטים לשעה ולא בג'יגאבטים לשעה.
First quarters of a year are usually pretty tricky because it's usually the worst quarter of the year because people don't want to go buy a car in the middle of winter during a blizzard. So and this, so we picked Q1 as like a good quarter to do a cut over to the new version of the Model Y, and we changed production of the world's best-selling cars. Worth remembering, the Model Y is the best-selling car of any kind on Earth.
הרבעון הראשון בדרך כלל רבעון חלש, לכן הם בחרו אותו להיות הרבעון שבו הם ישנו את המודל Y, שהוא היה הרכב הכי מוכר בעולם גם ככה, והם עשו את זה בו זמנית בכל המפעלים, בו זמנית של טסלה. אז הם הצליחו, ועכשיו מודל Y של טסלה בכל המפעלים נכנס לייצור רשמי, מהיר, והם עשו את זה בהצלחה.
Yeah. In conclusion, while there are many near-term headwinds for us and the broader industry, the future for Tesla is brighter than ever. The value of the company is delivering sustainable abundance with our affordable AI-powered robots. So, this phrase, I like this phrase. sustainable abundance for all.
Sustainable abundance.
If you say, like, what's the ideal future that you can imagine? That's what you'd want. You'd want abundance for all in a way that's sustainable. It's good for the environment. Basically, this is the happy future. If you say, what's the happiest future you can imagine? One which is, that would be a future where there's sustainable abundance for all. Closest thing to heaven we can get on earth, basically.
שפע תמידי, מתמשך.
So thank you again to the Tesla team
שפע
for
בר קיימא,
all their
יכולת
efforts
אינסופית
at
בעצם
this
של
challenging time.
שפע אנרגטי.
I look forward to continuing to lead the team to great success in the future.
Great. Thank you very much, Elon. Before we move on, Vaibhav has some opening remarks as well.
Thanks, Elon. As Elon mentioned, in Q1, we achieved something which has never been undertaken in the automotive industry of updating all our factories for the best-selling car in the world all at the same time. And this people don't understand, this was not a small feat. We're not aware of anybody else being able to do the best-selling car all at once within a quarter, and that too hitting all the timelines which we had
באמת רגע שיא
established at the beginning.
שברבעון אחד הם
So,
הצליחו
I mean, big
בכל
kudos
ארבעת
to the team
המפעלים
for making this happen.
לשנות את המודל של הרכב הכי
Additionally, we also
נמכר
hit
בעולם
a record gross
ולשדרג
profit
אותו
for energy storage
ולהביא
business
אותו
in the quarter.
בו זמנית בכל המפעלים
Now, getting back
למצב
into the
של
business,
פסי
there's
ייצור
been a lot
עובדים
of speculation as
באופן
to the reasons for decline of our
רציף
vehicle deliveries in the first quarter.
ברמות המספקות.
We had previously guided that we will be updating all factories, and this would lead to several weeks of lost production, which did happen as planned. The ripple effect of the change is not having enough new Model Y available in most markets for people to see and experience till the last few weeks of the quarter. Additionally, the negative impact of vandalism and unwarranted hostility towards our brand and our people had an impact in certain markets. Despite this,
כן,
we
הייתה
were
השפעה
able
לכל
to sell
הוונדליזם
out legacy Model
ופיגועי
Y in
הטרור נגד
US, China,
טסלה
and a few other markets within the
בכמה
quarter. And again,
גזרות,
you know, just so people
אבל זה
understand,
משהו
we were
שהם
producing the legacy
הצליחו
Model Y
להתגבר עליו.
till middle to end of February. And we switched over and we were able to still sell out within that period. So again, big achievement by all the people at Tesla to make it happen. We have a very extremely competitive vehicle lineup, which with most vehicles going through a recent update. And add to that advances in FSD, you have a personal chauffeur which can take you almost anywhere under supervision. There are numerous stories shared by customers ranging from how it has improved their daily commute, to providing mobility to customers with disabilities, to giving older customers the ability to travel comfortably and independently. Not only is FSD supervised safer than a human driver, but it is also improving the lives of individuals who experience it. And again, this is something you have to experience, and anybody who has experienced just knows it. And you know, we've been doing a lot
וכמובן מדבר על ה-FSD
try and get
סופרווייז
those stories out,
שצריך
at
לשים
least on
תשומת לב,
X,
הוא אומר
so
שהוא
that people
כבר
can
הגיע
see
למצב
how
שהוא
other
הרבה
people
יותר
have
טוב מבן
benefited
אדם,
from this.
שהוא ממליץ
Now,
לכל מי
coming
שעוד לא
into
ניסה
some
את
of
זה
the
לנסות את זה.
financial stuff,
אני הייתי בניו יורק,
auto
עשו לי
margins
הדגמה,
declined sequentially,
וואו.
primarily due to
אבל
the
אפשר לראות
reduction in the total
סרטונים
number
בכל
of
רחבי
deliveries,
הרשת ולראות איך זה עובד.
lower
כל
fixed
מי
cost
שלא
absorption
ראה עדיין, ממליץ לכם
due to
להסתכל ולראות
factory
סרטונים
changeovers,
איך
and
ה-FSD
lower regulatory
סופרווייז של
revenues,
טסלה עובד.
offset
מדהים.
by a slight increase in pricing due to the launch of new Model Y, despite incentives which we had to sell legacy Model Y. Our energy storage business, like I said before, has achieved yet another milestone of great highest gross profit in a quarter. This was despite, you know, sequential decline in deployments. The importance of this business, as Elon mentioned, is pretty profound, especially in this environment, because, you know, if in order for grid to work properly with the demands from AI and all this, you need some more stability. And this is by far the simplest and best solution which we are aware of, which can help do this. And we've also developed certain unique solutions to help our customers to achieve this. Additionally, on the Powerwall side, we've been selling the new Powerwall 3, and it's been received with very good reception from customers, and to the extent that we are currently supply constrained. On services and other margins, they were slightly down sequentially, primarily because of the pressure on our used car business and insurance business. Note that we continued our journey to improve profitability in our services and collision business through better labor productivity. As previously discussed, our operating expenses continue to increase sequentially, primarily due to our AI-related initiatives, including Optimus, and also cost of development for our vehicle programs, including CyberCab, Semi, and cheaper models. These expenses flow through R&D. We believe, even in the current environment, it is the right
R&D זה
strategy
מחקר
in
ופיתוח,
making
אפשר לשים לב
investments in
בדוחות
these areas to
שברבעון
position
הזה
us
הייתה
for the long term.
גדילה מטורפת
These increases
בסכום
were
כסף
offset
שהושקע
by
ב-R&D, ועכשיו
decreases
מדבר
in
על זה שזה
SG&A from changes
הולך
in our vehicle
לכיוון
referral program.
המכוניות הזולות יותר
Other
ועוד
income reduced
טכנולוגיות נוספות.
significantly on a sequential basis. The primary reason was Bitcoin mark-to-market loss in Q1 versus gain in Q4, resulting in a $472 million drop. The remainder of the
עליהם
change is
$400 מיליון
because of FX
צניחה רק
management.
בגלל ההחזקות
With the
ביטקוין
adoption of the
שלהם.
new mark-to-market standard for Bitcoin, we
כמה
expect
ביטקוין יש להם, וואו.
increased volatility in other income in addition to the FX volatility. I know tariffs is the hottest topic which people talk about, and it has
ביטקוין
various
בינתיים עולה
impacts
יפה,
to our business.
93,000 דולר.
As Elon
וואו,
mentioned,
איזה קפיצות
on the
ברגעים
vehicle
האלה.
business, we've been on this journey of regionalization for years. Specifically in the US, Model Y has been rated the most American model made car on Cars.com Made in America Index 3 years in a row. This in part is of all the work which the team has been doing over the years. And to the extent that today, if you look at our vehicle lineup in US, we're about approximately on a weighted average basis, 85% USMCA compliant. So like Elon said, this definitely gives us a bigger edge as compared to our other OEMs in terms of managing the tariffs, but we're not immune because when the Section 232 auto tariffs become effective in May, which includes Canada and Mexico, and Canada and Mexico has been part of our regionalization strategy, they will have an impact on profitability. And I know research modeling on this impact has been about a couple of thousand, which is pretty much in line with what we've been forecasting. The impact of tariffs on the energy business will be outsized since we source LFP battery cells from China. We're in the process of commissioning equipment for the local manufacturing of LFP battery cells in the US. However, the equipment which we have can only service a fraction of our total installed capacity at Lathrop. We've also been working on securing additional supply chain from non-China based suppliers, but it will take time. Also note that Megafact, irrespective of all the impact on US from tariffs on the energy business, we do have Megafactory China, which just started operations in Q1, and that should take care of our business outside of US. There's also an important impact of tariffs on our capital investments. I know this is going to sound counterintuitive since in order to onshore manufacturing or expand lines, we have to bring equipment from outside the US because there is not that much capacity in the US. And the current trade environment, such equipment being brought in is subject to
the expensive to bring it in from China right now.
Exactly. And the reality is that China has the basic one which has the most capacity to provide this equipment. Our capex guidance, inclusive of model tariffs, even with the optimization we have tried to do, it is forecasted to be still in excess of 10 billion this year. And we're still evaluating what more to do on this thing. To summarize, we have near-term challenges in our business due to tariffs and brand image. We think our strategy of providing the best product at a competitive price is going to be a winner, And this is the reason we're still focused on bringing cheaper models to market soon, with start of production still planned for June. Additionally, the advancement in FSD-related features, including pilot robotaxi launch in Austin later this year, should help create a new era of demand. I would like to
לצד זה,
thank everyone at
הזמנים
Tesla and
בינתיים
our
לא
customers.
משתנים, ביוני, אוסטין, טקסס, רובוטקסי,
Fantastic.
חבר'ה,
Thank you very much, Vaibhav. Now we will move on to investor questions. We will start
שאלות
with questions from
משקיעים.
say.com. First question is, what are the highest risk items on the critical path to robotaxi launch and scaling?
מה הסיכונים הגבוהים ביותר להרים את הרובוטקסי למצב של סקיילינג, של
It is Ashok.
המוני.
Yeah, we've got a struggle on.
Sure. Well, just to clarify the disambiguate the cybercab from robotaxi once again. When will the Teslas, because the Teslas that will be fully autonomous in June in Austin will be Model Ys. So
מודל Y זה
That
ייכנסו
is,
לצי הרובוטקסי ביולי
that's currently on track to be able to do paid rides fully autonomously in Austin in June. And then to be in many other cities in the US by the end of this year.
עד סוף השנה בעוד כמה ערים נוספות בארצות
ramp
הברית.
sort of week by week, month by month, except that it will ramp up very quickly.
צמיחה
it's gonna be like
והגדילה
some
תהיה גדולה מאוד, מהירה
basically
מאוד.
an S curve where it's very difficult to predict the intermediate slope of the S curve, but you kind of know where the S curve is going to end up, which is the vast majority of the Tesla fleet being autonomous. So that's why I feel confident in predicting large-scale autonomy around the middle of next year. But, certainly the second half of next year. Meaning, I predict that there will be millions of Teslas operating autonomously, fully autonomously, in the
כל
second half
טסלה
of
שם
next year.
בחוץ תהיה יכולת לנסוע אוטונומית, והוא מאמין רגולטורית עד אמצע שנה הבאה יהיו מיליונים של טסלות שנוסעות באופן אוטונומי ויכולות להיכנס לצי הרובוטקסי.
A localized parameter set where sort of like that the especially for places that have, say, very snowy weather, like say if you're in the Northeast or something, that like there's, you can think of it, it's kind of like a human. Like, if you could be a very good driver in California, but are you going to be also a good driver in a blizzard in Manhattan? You're not going to be as good. So there is actually some value in, you can still drive, but your probability of an accident is higher. So it's increasingly obvious that there's some value to having a localized set of parameters for different regions and localities. But this is I put that in the nice to have category. It's not the required category. Again, it's really the car is just very much like a human. It's digital neural nets and cameras, and humans operate with biological neural nets and eyes. And so the same strengths and weaknesses will be present.
בעצם כל החוזקות והחולשות יהיו כמו של בן אדם ב-FSD. הרי אנחנו רואים ויש לנו מוח, ואותו דבר הרכב הזה הוא רואה מצלמות ויש לו מוח, וכמובן שנהג טוב בפלורידה ובקליפורניה לא יהיה נהג מדהים בערים מושלגים ובגשם היסטרי. זאת אומרת שיהיו פיצ'רים נקודתיים במקומות שונים.
To completely different driving styles. That just like shows that the AI-based solution that we have is the right one, because if you had gone down the previous rule-based solutions or like more hard-coded HD map-based solutions. It would have taken like many, many years to get China to work. You can see those in the videos that people post online themselves. So the generalized solution that we are pursuing is the right one that's going to scale well. And you can think of this like location-specific parameters that Iran alluded to as like a mixture of experts. And if you're sort of like familiar with the AI models like Grok and others, they all use this mixture of experts to sort of like specialize the parameters to specific tasks while still being general. This makes the model use limited amount of compute to solve for the diversity of tasks that it has to solve. In terms of addressing the question that asks for, what are the critical things that we need to get right, one thing I would like to note is validation. Self-driving is a long-tail problem where there can be a lot of edge cases that only happen very, very rarely. Currently, we are driving around in Austin using our QA fleet, but then it's like super rare to get interventions that are critical for robotaxi operation. And so you can like go many days without getting a single intervention. So you can't easily know whether you're improving or regressing in your capacity. And we need to build out sophisticated simulations, including neural network-based video generation. That's all happening in the background to make sure that we deliver a safe product and we are able to measure our safety, even though we can't just like see it by driving around the block or something like that.
In very basic terms, if we're seeing an accident every 10,000 miles, well, then you have to drive 10,000 miles on average before you get an accident or an intervention. So it's like, okay. Now imagine, I mean, we must be really, people must be very worked out by the sheer number of Teslas doing circuits in Austin right now. We're like, well, it's going to look pretty bizarre.
Yeah. Some people are chasing us away.
Yeah. There's just always a convoy of Teslas going just going all over to Austin in circles. But yeah, as I just can't emphasize this enough. In order to figure out the long tail things, if it's 1 in 10,000, let's say it's 1 in 20,000 miles or 1 in 30, then now the average person drives 10,000 miles in a year. So now try to compress that test cycle into a matter of, a few months. That means you need a lot of cars doing a lot of driving in order to compress that, to do in a matter of a month what would normally take someone a year.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I would just also add that, if you haven't looked at those videos coming out of China, people are
those videos are amazing.
Yeah, they're putting it to real test. I mean, they're taking to dirt roads.
Frankly, I think the Chinese consumer might be the most demanding consumer, and
המדיום שיוצאים עושים באמת מדהימים.
customers in China are
הם
awesome.
בודקים שם את ה-FSD
They
באופן
have a lot of fun with the cars.
אינטנסיבי במיוחד.
Take a Tesla on autonomously on a narrow dirt road.
Yes.
Across like a mountain, and I'm like still a very brave person. And the Tesla's driving along on a road with no barriers, where if he makes a mistake, he's going to plunge to his doom. But it worked.
כן, אתם חייבים לראות את הניסיונות של האמיצים הסינים עם ה-FSD.
We're in B-sample validation now.
Yeah, we should ask that question too.
Yeah, we have our first big builds coming at the end of this quarter, within Q2, and then in the coming months we start to large scale installation of all the equipment in Giga Texas with still on schedule for production next year.
Yeah, and I just want to also clarify, because I think people don't understand. They think that there is no new building being built, and where is Cybercab going to be?
It's in the Giga.
It's within the same factory.
Yeah.
It's happening and people don't know it's just happening upstairs and all along the lines while we're still building the Model Ys and Cybertrucks every day.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the Tesla Gigafactory in Austin is 3 times the size of the Pentagon.
Including the garden.
Yeah, including the ground zero garden.
המפעל בטסלה כפול 3 מהגודל של הפנטגון.
This building used to look big, but anymore.
מפעל
Great.
ענק.
Thank you very much. The next question is, when will FSD unsupervised be available for personal use on personally owned cars?
מתי FSD ללא פיקוח של נהג יגיע לשוק אצל הנהגים?
Before the end of this year. Not necessarily let's say within the
לא
US,
בכל מקום,
like we do want to,
בארצות הברית עד סוף השנה.
at Tesla, we're absolutely hardcore about safety. You know, we go to great lengths to make the
מאוד
safest
רמת
car in the world
הבטיחות.
and have the lowest accidents per mile, and so and fewest lives lost. So we want to be very careful. So we want autonomy to be definitively safer than manual driving. So it's not enough that it just be as safe. It needs to be meaningfully safer than if it's
ברגע
cars
שהם
manually
ירגישו
driven.
ויבינו מבחינת
So,
נתונים שזה באמת
and we
יותר
want to
טוב
confirm that there's
מכל
lots of
נהג
them.
ממוצע, אז הם באמת ירגישו חופשי
Yeah, we just
ונוח
want to be
לשחרר את זה בארצות
cautious
הברית,
with the rollout. We don't want to
אבל
jump in at
באמת
the deep end
בטיחות
with
בנהיגה
Ronnie.
אוטונומית, כמו שכולם צריכים להבין, זה מעל הכל.
But that said, I think we should be able to have it work in several cities later this year for personal use. So you know, the acid test being you should be able to can you go to sleep in your car and wake up at your destination. And I'm confident that will be available in many cities in the US by the end of this year.
עד סוף השנה בהרבה ערים
Thank you
בארצות
very much.
הברית,
The
בני
next
אדם
question
יוכלו
is
להיכנס
Tesla still
לרכב
on track
שלהם
for releasing more
ולישון
affordable models this year?
בדרך ולהתעורר בסיר.
Or will you be focusing on simplified versions to enhance affordability, similar to the rear-wheel drive Cybertruck?
Yeah, we're still planning to release models this year. As with all
יש עדיין
launches, we're
תכנון
working through like the
לשחרר עוד
last minute
מודלים
issues that
חדשים
pop up.
השנה?
We're knocking them down one by one. At this point, I would say that ramp maybe might be a little slower than we had hoped initially, but there's nothing, you know, just kind of given that turmoil that exists in the industry right now. But there's nothing that's blocking us from starting production within the next within the timeline laid out in the opening remarks. And I will say it's important to emphasize that, as we've said all along, the full utilization of our factories is the primary goal for these new products. And so flexibility of what we can do within the form factor and you know the design of it is really limited to what we can do on our existing lines rather than building new ones. But we've been targeting the low cost of ownership. Monthly payment is the biggest differentiator for our vehicles, and that's why we're focused on bringing these new models with the the lowest price to the market within the constraints I just highlighted.
אז כמובן שיש את ההגבלות של פסי
Thank you
הייצור,
very much.
אבל
The
השאיפה
next
שלהם
question is,
היא לקדם
does
כמה
Tesla
שיותר
see
מהר את
robotaxi as a
המודלים
winner-take-most
החדשים.
market? And as you approach the Austin launch, how do you expect to compare against Waymo's offering, especially regarding pricing, geofencing, and regulatory flexibility?
לגבי התחרות והיכולת של העסקית בין
The issue with
Tesla
Waymo's
ל-Waymo.
cars is they cost way more money.
הבעיה עם ויימו זה שזה עולה ויימו כסף, יעני, ויימו הרבה יותר. בסופו של דבר, כל הסנסורים והליידרים עולים להם כל כך הרבה כסף לייצר אותם בכמות גבוהה, בטסלה זה פשוט 8 מצלמות, המוח שהם ייצרו כבר, והתוכנה שקיימת.
20% of what a Waymo costs, and made in very high volume.
עולה להם 20% ממה שוויימו עולה לייצר, ואפשר לייצר אותו בהמוניות.
Ironically, we're the ones that made the bet that a pure AI solution with cameras and audio, the car actually will listen for sirens and that kind of thing, is the right move. And Waymo decided that an expensive sensor suite was the way to go, even though Google's very good at AI. It's ironic. And it is worth noting that Tesla's built an incredible AI software team and AI hardware chip design team from scratch, from nothing. We didn't acquire anyone. We just built it.
יצרו תוכנות בינה מלאכותית, יצרו את הצ'יפים עצמם בתוך המכוניות, הכל של טסלה. זה לא צ'יפים של NVIDIA בתוך טסלה. בתוך הטסלות יש צ'יפים של בינה מלאכותית, שטסלה יצרה בעצמה.
But at least as far as I'm aware, Tesla will have, I don't know, 99% market share or something ridiculous.
Why?
90-something%. At least, I don't know, at least some of them might change, but
אילון מאסק כרגע בטוח
if we have millions of cars deployed next
מבחינת
year,
פלח
unless
שוק, הוא
others have
הולך לשלוט במעל
millions of
90%
cars deployed,
מהשוק
like we'll
של
have,
נהיגה אוטונומית.
unless we're blocked by regulatory situations, it won't be long. I mean, in a few years, we'll have 10 million autonomous cars on the roads, then, and counting.
I mean, the other thing which people forget is like, we're not just developing the software solution, we are also manufacturing the cars.
Yeah.
And like, what, like Waymo has, they're taking cars and then trying to put.
Way more money.
ויימו
We don't do
ויימו
that.
לא
So
מכינה את
that
המכוניות בעצמה, היא רק
definitely gives us
מלבישה
a
עליהן את
big
כל הסנסורים
up, and
ומשמישה
like Elon
אותם
said,
כמכוניות
we already have
אוטונומיות.
a big
אצלנו
existing fleet,
מייצרים את הכל
which
בעצמם,
hopefully with the
מהמכונית,
software update
למצלמות,
could become
לצ'יפים,
autonomous.
למוח,
With the software update, it will become autonomous.
וזה עולה 20% ממה
To
שעולה
be clear, the
לוויימו
Model Y
לייצר
is
מכונית.
in being autonomous in Austin in June are the Model Ys we make currently. There's no change to it.
I think people don't appreciate that the car which they can buy today
The car that they have.
or
סיכון
car
אוהב
they
את
have
הדיבורים האלה.
is capable of
Yeah.
these kind of things.
In fact, it does drive autonomously from the factory to the end of line, every car
Yeah.
nowadays.
So-
The
In the
Cybertruck
US.
through the tunnel, the Model Ys, everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have, it is being put to use, it's doing useful work fully autonomously at the factories, as Ashok was mentioning. The cars drive themselves from end of line to where they're supposed to be picked up by a truck to be taken to a customer. And I'm confident also that later this year, the first Model Y will drive itself all the way to the customer.
אז כרגע המכוניות יוצאות מהמפעל
So from
ונוסעות אל משטח
like
השילוח
from a factory
באופן
in
עצמאי לחלוטין. מסיימות
Boston and I
מהפס,
one in
נוסעות לבד.
here in Fremont,
הוא
California.
אומר שעד סוף השנה
Um,
המודל ווייז שיוצאות
I'm
מארצות
confident that
הברית
from both
כמובן,
factories, we'll
יצאו
be able to drive
מהמפעל
directly
ישירות
to a
ללקוח,
customer.
פשוט ייסעו אל
from a
הלקוח.
factory.
Cool delivery.
Yeah. Literally goes from the end of line and drives himself to your house.
It's important to note in the factories, we don't have dedicated lanes or anything. People are coming
Yeah.
in and out every day, trucks delivering supplies, parts, construction, for
Well,
the,
and people can film it. By the way, you can
Yeah.
see this from the road, like it's not covered.
exactly.
In these videos, people take videos online, and anyone who wants to go see it can just drive past our Fremont factory and see the autonomous
It's
cars
like
driving
that.
themselves. Yeah, and they drive themselves and they put themselves in the exact right spot to be picked up.
Yeah, the logistics yard is right there in the open. You can see
Yeah,
it. We don't
As a
move it again
Hebra.
to another lane.
but they go to a specific parking
Exactly.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a routine, like everyday thing now.
עניין שבשגרה כבר,
Great,
כאילו.
thank you very
אני
much.
כבר לא מרגיש.
The next question is, can you please provide an update on the unboxed method and how that is progressing?
ספרו
Sure.
לנו קצת על היכולת החדשה
Progressing,
שלכם
absolutely.
לבנות מכוניות.
As I mentioned just a minute ago, like it is the basis for our CyberCat manufacturing process. It's really what we changed in order to allow the low cost of production and also get the super high levels of automation. Really levels of automation that are sort of unheard of in the vehicle manufacturing scale. This is like not something that, when you see it be produced, you'll think of in terms of like, wow, that's how a car has been built for 100 years. It's really something we've changed. In the past year, we've been like focusing on a lot of key development areas, like marrying these large sub-assemblies together in a precise way, in an accurate way. We've also de-risked things like corrosion of uncoated aluminum structures, the sealing across the seams of the vehicle, and when you marry assemble components. And we've even done early crash testing and proven that it's going to be just as safe as every other car we built. And so with all that combined, we kind of go into the builds that we have at the end of this quarter for the CyberCat product, and that's the next real big test of full scale, integration of the unbox process. And it's kind of where we are. So you'll see them in test and on the test roads in a couple of months.
Yeah. And although the line won't be obviously at this rate
Initially.
This is a revolutionary production system. I'm not sure what the right word is. Unboxing sounds like something like when you get your phone.
Here you open it up.
Yeah. So you have like
Yeah,
a pleasant
that's
experience when you take your phone out of the box. But which of course is nice, but this is much more revolutionary than that. This is
מחשבה
a
מחודשת על
profound
פסי ייצור של איך בונים מכוניות.
reimagining of how to make
לצאת
cars
מהקופסה
in the first
ולעשות
place.
את זה באופן
no car is made like this
שלא
anywhere in the
חשבו על זה
world.
עד עכשיו, בשום מקום לא עושים,
The
לא
factory is the
בונים
product
מכוניות
as much
ככה.
as the car is the product.
המפעל
So,
הוא חלק מהמוצר בעצם,
It's
חלק
really just the first principles approach
הם
to
בנו מוצר
manufacturing
שייצר להם מוצרים.
that will ultimately allow us, I think, I'm confident ultimately it'll allow us to achieve a cycle time, meaning a unit every 5 seconds or less off a single line.
And we want to incorporate some of these
Wow.
for testing it into our existing production
הוא מאמין
lines as well.
שהמתודה
to-
החדשה
to-
באיזשהו
to-
שלב
to-
תגיע למצב שכל
This is something
5
I've been
שניות
thinking about
יוצא
for a
מכונית
long
מפס
time,
הייצור. 5 שניות.
I've been thinking
בתצורה
about this for a long
החדשה
time,
של
and it's kind of
הדרך החדשה לייצר מכוניות.
it's not a
מטורף.
crazy thing. Like a car every 5 seconds may sound like it's coming out like bullets, but actually it's coming out at walking speed.
It's like a meter a second.
A meter a second. So this is like we're still far away from caring about the aerodynamic drag of the manufacturing line. You know, because you're still at 3 miles an hour technically.
Like,
You know, every 5 seconds sounds crazy, but it's 3 miles an hour. That's what we're talking about. So yeah, you can run away from it basically. But that's still by far the fastest line on Earth. You know, and it's like half motor like I don't know. What's like the best single line on Earth? It's like about,
Shanghai phase 2,
and that's us.
33 seconds.
yes.
And we're the fastest, right?
I would think so.
דקה אני בא.
We think we're the fastest at 33 seconds in our Shanghai factory, but this would be, you know, 6 times faster or 7 times faster thereabouts. So yeah, I mean, it'll be slower than that at first, but the point is that like when you fully optimize the design and operation of the next generation factory that we're building right now, a 5-second cycle time or less is the design is capable of it, you know. So if you know, like when you go through like a radical new architecture, you go from like being like an A, I mean, I'd say like probably Shanghai in particular is an A+ on a moderately, you know, an advanced but still traditional car production system. Sort of, they're really doing about as good as possible to do within a conventional scenario. So trying to get much below, you know, sort of below like 30 seconds, extremely difficult. But if not, and you start getting into sort of impossible, where you have to be faster than a human could possibly move. So then the autonomous line, it really just needs to be robots moving really fast, and that's where you get to sub 5 seconds. But we'll start off with at getting a C in, instead of an A, getting a C in a new architecture. But then the potential is there over time to move that up to an A+ within an A+ architecture.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is, how is Tesla positioning itself to flexibly adapt to global economic risks in the form of tariffs, political biases, etc.?
איך טסלה שומרת על עצמו ברמת מכסים גלובליים והכל?
For a while, we continue to mitigate global economic risks like tariffs and political biases by regionalizing part supply near its factories in North America, Berlin, and Shanghai. For example, in North America, our high-volume vehicle programs have over 85% North American content, and Shanghai vehicles have over 95% local content. Berlin has similar levels of regionalization as North America when you exclude the battery, and we are working on regionalizing the battery as well. This is a pre-pandemic strategy that we accelerated post-pandemic through supply diversification, dual sourcing, vertical integration, advanced analytics, and local partnerships to ensure supply chain resilience and production stability. Having said that, we are not 100% insulated, and these tariff risks are higher on our low volume platforms than the high volume ones.
Yeah. In fact, there's no more vertically integrated car company than Tesla. I mean, we're the most vertically integrated car company since, you know, Henry Ford back in the day when they were doing mining iron and stuff, and growing rubber trees. So, like we're not growing rubber trees and mining iron yet, but we have built a lithium refinery in South Texas, and it's the
באנו
the
מפעל
biggest lithium refinery outside of China, I
למחזור
think.
ליתיום.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Once it's set up.
yeah, but it has its output potential would be the biggest lithium refinery
Yeah,
outside.
and we've got space to expand there if we need to build more.
Right. So, and then we've got the cathode refinery in Austin next to the Gigafactory. We're gonna figure out what to do about the anode. That's an ongoing subject of discussion. The best of all possible worlds would be figuring out how to have no anode. Best anode, best part being no part. That's the dream of
כרגע אין להם
the
יכולת של
lithium
מחזור של
batteries to
האנודה.
be anode.
יש את האנודה ואת הקתודה
But
בסוללה.
either way,
הם
we
ממחזירים
better
גם
have the anode, the cathode,
הקתודה, והוא
and the
מעדיף
lithium
שיגיע למצב
and the
שלא
electrolytes
יצטרכו
separator
אנודה בסוללות.
to make a
לא
cell.
מבין בסוללות, אבל אם אילון אומר,
But you know, there's no other car company that is building lithium refineries and cathode refineries. We're ridiculously vertically integrated, and thus our best position to protect against supply chain disruptions.
Yeah.
Right. Why do you want to talk about the progress in the front?
Yeah, certainly for our in-house cells, we've multi-sourced every component, and we have every part coming from at least 2 different countries of origin, which is that we started this. The supply chain team and the engineering team worked together on this for the last couple of years to put that together. It's not something we did in a couple of months. This is years of work. So we're in a good position to take advantage of that, and the insourcing of lithium and cathode, they're the 2 most critical parts of the battery. That's right in our backyard, and we're totally insulated from
Well, it needs to be in operation.
It needs to be in operation. That's the right way.
We also make our own cells, by the way. So
Right.
cell production, if you look, there's this, there's, you make the anode, the cathode, the lithium, the electrolyte separator, the can, and then you got to put all that together in the cell factory. And there are entire companies that all they do is produce cells, but they don't do the other stuff. They don't refine lithium or the cathode or, so our cell production is going quite well, and I think we're currently sort of the lowest cost per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
In US.
For all the cells we purchase in North America.
Yeah, so it's
Lowest cost to us.
yeah, so we have the lowest cost per kilowatt hour, all things considered. So the Tesla cell is the most competitive cell.
הסוללות של טסלה הן
Yeah,
באמת
for
הסוללות
a kilowatt hour according to the car.
טובות
It's a
ברמת
Tesla cell,
המחיר
it's lower
לקילוואט
cost than it's a
לשעה.
solar cell.
יותר
the plan is
מפנסוניק
to build
ו-CTL
up that
שהן
base.
חברות יהודיות
Getting to lowest
לסוללות.
cost is
טסלה פשוט
um,
אוכלת אותם בלי מלח, רק בייצור סוללות.
it's the hardest challenge for cell manufacturing. It's relatively easy to build a flashy product that does one thing well. To build something at high volume and low cost is super difficult, and we're kind of using that as a base to then build off and add performance in different areas for new products coming out.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, to Elon's point, there's a lot of advantages for regionalization. The most important thing is we're not tying up working capital for 6 to 8 weeks on the ocean. If there's a design change, then everything that's in transit basically has to be scrapped. Secondly, port disruptions, as we saw during COVID, can be very expensive because slight disconnects can shut down production. So then your only option is costly air expedite. It also gives us resilience in supply chain. If one region is down, we can bridge with others. It's more work to set up in the beginning, but it's critical to have when the need arises. Having said that, it's unrealistic to assume 100% regionalization across the board for specialized areas such as semiconductors. In such cases, our team works very closely with our partners to ensure we have strategic banks in place and a disruption doesn't impact production while we stand up the regional manufacturing for that particular commodity.
And I'll say like on the rest of the vehicle, like Elon was talking about with cells, we're also heavily vertically integrated, import ingots, and turn them into castings. We recycle those in melt centers. The same thing with plastics, but it doesn't mean we're not exposed. We do have some areas where we use rare earth magnets, and we've been working for years to find alternative sources and bring those up, as well as we have our induction machines. And as we've mentioned in the past, we're working on ferrite motors for some time. So like, as Karn said, with our heavy regionalization percentages, we're definitely like the lowest, exposed to this, but we're not completely immune, as Bob mentioned in his opening remarks.
Great.
אז ברמת שרשרת אספקה הם די מסודרים בפני עצמם, לא ב100%, אבל בכל מדינה, בכל אזור ואזור יש להם את המדינות הספציפיות שלהם, ככה שגם אם משהו נסגר להם באזור מסוים, הם יכולים להיעזר באזור השני כדי לספק לעצמם. אז בעצם בזכות הקורונה, אבל קצת לפני הקורונה, הם הבינו את החשיבות של הצורך לדאוג לעצמם מתחילת העשייה עד לסופה ולייצר שותפים רבים כדי לעשות אספקה תזרימית באופן יעיל ביותר.
We also have some other sources coming online to supplement the shortfall, and then of course we have the LFP production that's happening in-house. We have a slight disconnect of aligning the right cells with the right packs, so that's the little bit of puzzle that we have to solve internally. But as far as cells go, there's no shortage.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is, did Tesla experience any meaningful changes in order inflow rate in Q1 relating to all of the rumors of brand damage?
So in Q1, as mentioned earlier, we took the best-selling car of the last 2 years and ramped up all 4 of our global factories. And in less than 8 weeks, we've already gone to the rate of our previous Model Ys in the factories. So just kudos again to the team for the great job there. And despite the economic strain and negative articles that in California in Q1, Tesla remained the best-selling car, not just EV. And additionally, we had a record number of test drives globally in Q1 as well. So interest remains high. And so right now we continue to see, good interest still in the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla's not immune to sort of the macro demand for cars.
Yes.
So when there is economic uncertainty, people generally want to pause on buying, doing a major capital purchase like a car. But as far as absent macro issues, we don't see any reduction in demand.
Correct. And that's where we continue to focus on affordability, and it's a fundamental focus there.
יכול שיש עניינים גלובליים של כלכלה, פחות ופחות אנשים קונים מכוניות, כי זה רכישה גדולה, אבל הם עדיין לא זיהו ירידה בביקושים, וכמובן שככל שהם יורידו מחירים, הביקושים רק יעלו. די אותה שאלה ממקודם.
Optimus, I just want to emphasize, Optimus is still very much a development program. It's not a large volume production. That's why, this year, we'll make a few that, we do expect to make thousands of Optimus robots, but most of that production is going to be at the end of the year. So almost everything in Optimus is new. There's not like an existing supply chain for the motors, gearboxes, electronics, actuators, really anything.
גם כושר הייצור המסיבי של אופטימוס, הוא אומר שזה רק התחיל לקראת סוף השנה וכבר יהיה להם כמה אלפים, מה שאין שום דבר שם בשוק מהמדף שאפשר לקנות שהוא חלק של אופטימוס, לא אותם מנועים של הידיים ולא את המנועים של הרגליים, הכל הם מייצרים בעצמם, אז הם בינתיים בשלב פיתוח.
And as a first order approximation, there's like 10,000 unique things. So that's why does anyone who tells you they can predict with precision the production ramp of a truly new product doesn't know what they're talking about. It is literally impossible. So you go through this like series of constraints where it's like this part's the limiting factor now, that part's the limiting factor now, this part's the limiting factor. and multiply that by 1,000, basically.
יש 1,000
And then the rate of the
חלקים
production
שאי אפשר
is decided
לצפות
by how quickly you can
איפה הם
solve each of those
יעכבו את
problems.
הייצור, אז בעצם כל פעם הם צריכים להתקדם בבייבי סטפס ולגלות מה הגורם
Optimus was
המכריע
affected
שמאט את הקצב שלהם להתקדמות, לפתור אותו,
by the
לעבור
magnet
הלאה ולגלות
issue
את
from
הדבר
China,
הבא.
because
אז זה
the
עדיין
Optimus
בפיתוח,
actuators in the arm
אבל
do use permanent magnets. Now, Tesla as a whole does not need to use
זה
permanent
נראה
magnets,
מבטיח.
but when something is volume constrained, like an arm of the robot, then you want to try to make the motors as small as possible. And then, so we did design in permanent magnets for those motors, and those were affected by the supply chain, by basically China requiring an export license to send out any rare earth magnets. So we're working through that with China. Hopefully we'll get a license to use the rare earth magnets. China wants some assurances that these are not used for military purposes, which obviously they're not. They're just going into a humanoid robot. So it's not a weapon system. But that is an example of a challenge there.
כמה גורמים יש לקחת בחשבון, אתם צריכים לקנות מגנטים מסין, וסין רוצה ערבויות מטסלה שהמגנטים שהם קונים הם לא ישמשו לייצור נשק. כך הרבה עניינים שצריכים לפתור כדי לייצר מוצר כזה.
The first question is going to come from Pierre at New Street. Pierre, please unmute yourself.
שאלות האנליסטים, שאלות מגוחכות בדרך כלל.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm super excited to hear Robotaxi and Optimus becoming the very tangible future for Tesla. But I have actually a question on the legacy, not the legacy, but the current auto business. And when I look back at the ramp of Model 3 a few years ago, I really saw it as being the iPhone of cars, a new product, completely reinvented, very different user experience, vastly superior, impossible to match for traditional competitors. And for the iPhone, it resulted in the high end of the smartphone market quadrupling in size, and actually Apple taking 60% market share. And so when you look at the Model 3 and the Model Y today, I think they are still really vastly superior to any other cars. And I wonder why they've taken about 15% of their addressable market and not more, actually. So another way to put it is, why are there so many people still buying BMWs and Mercedes, knowing that the Model 3 and the Model Ys are out there and available? And I wonder if you're trying to solve that riddle internally, if you understand why, what are these auto buyers who are not buying a Model 3 or a Model Y missing, and if you have ideas of things you could do to address that, maybe there is enormous value left on the table there. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering these days.
Yeah, the reality is that in the future, most people are not going to buy cars. So it's kind of what one could sort of say, look, if you want to continue with your phone metaphor, you can remember the days of the flip phones when there was 100 different flip phone designs, and I would the mistake that manufacturers made was to try to make many different variants of a flip phone, but which was a mistake. They should have made the iPhone. So, because obviously everyone's going to want a smartphone, but in the beginning of when the iPhone came out, I was like, wow, I can't believe these guys are not reacting as though this is death. But they didn't. They kept making variants of flip phones. Nokia, I think at one point was the most valuable company in the world, or close to it. But they kept making flip phones. Trying to find another market niche. Maybe somebody wants a phone of a different style. Maybe this different color, whatever it is. Nope, they just want a super intelligent phone.
באופן מיידי.
that can do everything.
הוא כי אילון מאסק חושב
one.
שבעתיד הלא רחוק רוב האנושות בכלל לא תרצה לקנות מכוניות, לא יהיו אנשים שיחזיקו מכוניות, כי תחבורה תהיה
I
אוטונומית
said this many
על
years
פי
ago.
דרישה בטלפון, וככה לא באמת
In the
יצטרכו.
future, in the
והאנליסט
not
נתן
too
את
distant
האנלוגיה
future,
של טלפונים, הוא עכשיו מסביר לו
buying a
שפעם
gasoline
נוקיה
car that is not
וכולם יצרו
autonomous
את
will be like
הטלפונים,
riding on horns
הפלאפונים
while using a
שנפתחים,
smartphone.
וכולם התרגשו על זה, ובסופו של דבר הם לא ראו
Some people still do it,
שהאייפון
but it's rare.
יגיע וידרוס אותם, וכולם יעברו לאייפון.
Great.
אז
Thank
זה
you.
פשוט,
The next question
הוא
comes
אומר שהוא
from
מצליח לראות
Emmanuel
כבר את
Rosner
האייפון,
at Wolf.
ולמה לייצר טלפונים
Emmanuel,
מתקפלים.
please unmute yourself.
Great. Thanks for taking my question. So Ilan, the public version of the FSD software still has a decent amount of, I guess, intermittent human interventions that are required. So what's still required for the software on your end to get to a level where it doesn't need to be supervised? And I'm asking that in the context of, obviously, the June launch being in the next couple of months. What still needs to happen?
מה עוד צריך לקרות ב-FSD כדי שלא יהיה בפיקוח?
And we are working on a number of items to
Go ahead,
the
Joshua.
robustness. Yeah. I mean, we are
זה
aware of
השוק
the
קונה שהוא
interventions that
ראש
are
חטיבת
happening
הבינה
in the
מלאכותית
public
בטסלה.
builds, and that's why we are hardcore burning it down. And really speaking, some initial launch city helps us focus on like solving all the issues that you'd face here. For example, like we're focusing on Austin, we're not like solving all the issues that customers in Boston or somewhere else might face. And then here we just like have a big list of all the issues, just burn it down, and that's what the team is working on, along with other sort of like redundancy issues. For example, if one of the computers goes down right now in the customer fleet, it would like throw the red hands and ask you to take over, but we don't want that kind of situation. So you're solving both like the reliability issues of the autonomy software and also the reliability issues of the system software together for Austin.
אז צריך לעשות פיינטיונינג נקודתיים
Yeah,
לכל אזור
just work
ואזור,
through a long
עד שזה
tail of
יהיה פתרון
unusual
כללי גלובלי.
interventions.
העניין
So-
של כמה
these are really
קילומטרים,
very
כמה
rare.
מיילים
Like
של
this thing
נסיעה,
on
לכמה התערבויות צריך,
intervention
והמטרה היא
every
להביא את
10,000
זה
miles. I mean, that's a
ל10,000
lot of
מייל
driving
להתערבות
to even find one
ומעלה,
case where
ואז
that
כבר
happens.
יש מוצר.
Yeah, and some
יש
interventions
ביטחון.
are happening due to systematic, like missing functionality. For example, for handling emergency vehicles correctly, you don't need to consume audio as an input. But then the customer-facing versions don't have audio input, but the version that's going to be in Austin will have audio input and so on.
Okay, but would you have like remote operators, for example?
I mean, every now and then, if a car gets stuck or something, someone will unblock it. But it's just because we are a bit conservative and tend towards more safety than even if we get stuck every now and then. We do have remote support, but it's not going to be required for safe operation. If anything, it's just required for more availability.
שואל אם יהיה תמיכה מרחוק לנסיעה, זה אומר שזה לא יהיה עניין של בטיחות, אלא זה יהיה עניין של תקיעות וכאלה, או מצבי קיצון שצריך להוציא את הרכב מהם. שליטה מרחוק כשירות.
Hi, thank you very much for the question. So I want to ask about the Optimus supply chain going forward. You mentioned, very fast ramp up. What do you envision that supply chain looking like? Is it going to require many more suppliers to be in the US now because of the tariffs? How does one kind of think about what needs to happen there?
We have to see how things settle out. I don't know yet. I mean, so some things we're doing, as we already talked about, which is that we've already taken tremendous steps to localize our supply chain. We're more localized than any other manufacturer, and we have a lot of things underway that to increase the localization to reduce supply chain risk associated with geopolitical uncertainty.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah. Wanted to come back actually to the robotaxi then. Do you have a sense on how many cars or how big the scale will be initially and how that might ramp up? I know you're targeting millions of of vehicles in the second half kind of next year. But initially at launch, how many vehicles would be reasonable? And is it going to be as simple as if one goes to Austin, let's say in late June or July, you'll be able to request?
Yeah. We're still debating the exact number to start off on day one, but it's like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 vehicles on day one. And watch it carefully, then scale it up rapidly after that. So, you know, we want to make sure that we're paying very close attention the first time this happens. But yeah, you'll be able to, end of June or July, just go to Austin and order a Tesla autonomous drive.
Great. The next question comes from George at Canaccord.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. It has to do with FSD pricing. Could we envision when you launch unsupervised FSD that there could be sort of a multi-tiered pricing approach to unsupervised versus supervised, similar to what you did with autopilot versus FSD in the past? Thank you.
I mean, this is something which we've been thinking about. I mean, just so you know, for people who have been trying FSD and who've been using FSD, they think even the current pricing is too cheap because for $99, you're basically getting a personal show.
Yeah, I mean, we do need to give people more time to if they want to.
כרגע המחיר מרגיש להם זול
The
מדי,
key breakpoint is,
אבל
can
צריך
you read
לתת
your text
לאנשים
messages
להרגיש
or
את
not?
זה.
Yes.
Can you write a text message or not? Because obviously people are doing this, by the way, with unautonomous cars all the time. And if you just go for a drive down the highway and you'll see people texting while driving, you know, doing 80 miles an hour.
And putting the makeup on at the same time.
Yeah, putting on makeup, doing their hair with the mirror down, and texting and driving at 80 miles an hour. This is a common occurrence. So people
כולם
eating
מסמסים
lunch,
בנהיגה,
you name it.
אז צריך להגיע למצב שיהיה אפשר לסמס בנהיגה בלי לדאוג, ואז יהיה אפשר להעלות את המחירים.
Right now, the car is very insistent that you pay attention to the road, so which reduces the value somewhat because it's very rigorous about you paying attention to the road. And we'll gradually lighten up on that with, you know, every few weeks or every month, we'll relax that a little bit, make it so you can be more and more able to do things you want to do and not have the car demand your rigid attention. So that value, it'll really be profound when you can basically do whatever you want, including sleep, and then that $99 is going to seem like the best $99 you've ever spent in your life.
Great. And George, do you have a follow-up?
My follow-up is about geographic expansion. Just maybe discuss additional markets. You know, there's been some news around India recently that you could launch this year and next. Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, we've been working on getting into India. India is a very hot market, and especially the current, and I don't want to talk just about tariffs, but the current tariff structure with India is that any car which we send in is subject to 70% tariff, also like a 30%, you know, luxury tax on it. So, you know, the same car which we're sending is like 100% more expensive than what it is. So that creates a lot of, you know, anxiety. It's like, you know, people feel, okay, they're paying too much for the car. And by the way, we're not getting the money. The local government is getting the money. And that's why we've been very careful trying to figure out when is the right time. We, like I said, we are working on it. It would be a great market to enter because India has a big middle class which we would want to tap in, and that is the market which we want to be in. But again, these kind of things create a little bit of tension which we're trying to work out.
Great, thank you so much. The next question comes from Adam Jonas at
לא
Morgan
עשירים
Stanley.
כמו האוכלוסייה בישראל. אז בישראל רמת האימוץ גבוהה יותר מאשר מה שהם מרגישים שיהיה בהודו, אבל הם מתכננים להיכנס להודו חזק.
We can't hear you, Adam. So maybe we'll put you back in the queue and we'll move to Colin Langan from Wells Fargo while Adam figures out his audio. Colin, please unmute yourself.
Oh, great. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. You're still sticking with the vision-only approach. A lot of autonomous people still have a lot of concerns about, sun glare, fog, and dust. Any color on how you anticipate on getting around those issues? Because my understanding, it kind of blinds the camera when you get glare and stuff.
קולין מפקפק ביכולות
Actually,
של השמונה
it does not blind the
מצלמות.
camera. We use an approach which is direct photon count. So when you see a processed image, so the image that goes from the sort of photon counter, so the silicon photon counter, that then goes through a digital signal processor or image signal processor. That's normally what happens, and then then the image that you see looks all washed out because if you point the camera at the sun, the post-processing of the photon counting washes things out. It actually adds noise. So quite a big breakthrough that we made some time ago was to go with direct photon counting and bypass the image signal processor. And then you can drive pretty much straight into the sun.
מערכות של
You can also
ספירת
see
פוטונים
in what
במקום
appears to be the
ניתוח
blackness of night.
תמונה, ככה שגם אם
In fog we can see as
העדשה
well
קצת
as
מלוכלכת, או
people can.
שתנאי הדרך
Probably better,
קצת
but
מעורפלים,
I'd say probably slightly
או
better than
חשוכים,
people.
או שישירים למקור אור חזק כמו שמש. אז הפוסט פרודקשן יודע לקחת את
So the camera is able to see when there's direct glare on it.
ולהשתמש בו בניתוח פוטוני, שזה חלקיקי אור.
And then just, there were obviously media reports the other day that the affordable model was delayed. Doesn't sound like that's correct. Those reports also talked about it being more of a cheaper version of the Model Y. Any color on what we should expect? Is it a cheaper version of the Model Y, or is it actually going to be a design change with it?
So I think Lars already covered it in answering one of the say.com questions. The real thing which we are trying to focus on is affordability. And using our existing lines, and there's always limitations when you're using existing lines as to how many different form factors can you bring to. So that's the way I would say you should think about it. And I don't know if Lars anything more to add.
Yeah, I think I said this before in other calls, like, with the recent upgrades to the Model 3 and the Model Y platforms, we made some pretty great cars at pretty great prices, and we added a bunch of features and things like that. I think it's easy to consider that, moving forward, Tesla doesn't make bad cars, and we always make, our intent is not to make a car that is any worse than any car we've ever produced in the past. And so, the models that come out in the next months will be built on our lines and will resemble in form and shape the cars we currently make. And but the key is that they'll be affordable and you'll be able to buy one.
Great. We might have time for one last question. Adam, we'll try your audio again.
האם זה יהיה על הפלטפורמות הישנות? המטרה היא אבל להוציא מכוניות מצוינות לאורך כל הדרך ולהוזיל את המחיר. זה הייצור שלהם.
Unfortunately, still not working.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, guys. Technology.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, in the February 28th Joe Rogan interview, Elon, you advocated for a ramp in tariffs to give people time to adjust. Otherwise, in a quote, you said the system would break and bad things would happen. So are things breaking yet? And if the tariffs as announced remain in place, when would things start breaking?
Well, at the risk of stating the obvious, I'm one of many advisors to the president. I'm not the president. So, but I've made my opinion clear to the president, and that and other people made their opinion clear to the president. He listens. He talks to many people, and he makes his decision. And I'm hopeful that the president will observe whether my predictions are more accurate than the predictions of others, and perhaps weigh my advice differently in the future. We shall see. But I'm an advocate of predictable tariff structures, and generally I'm an advocate for free trade and lower tariffs.
בגדול
Now,
הוא
one
בעד
does need to take a
בעד
look
סחר
at
חופשי, פחות מכסים, והוא מייעץ את זה לנשיא,
where
הנשיא מקשיב לכמה
if
מקורות מידע
some country
ולוקח
is doing
החלטה
something
עצמאית,
predatory with tariffs, or
ככה שאין לו יותר
is
מדי
providing
יכולת
extreme
השפעה
support
מעבר
for,
למה שהוא עושה
if a
כרגע.
government is providing extreme financial support for a particular industry, then you have to do something to counteract that. But I think that's on a case-by-case basis strategically. The president is the elected representative of the people and is fully within his rights to do what he would like to do. So,
Okay, Elon, I respect that. Just as a follow-up, and thanks again. Between China and the United States, who, in your opinion, is further ahead on the development of physical AI, specifically on humanoids, and also drones? I'd be interested. And is it even close? And kind of how?
סין לארצות הברית, מי מתקדם יותר בבינה מלאכותית,
well,
ברובוטים וברחפנים. אז אילון מאסק צוחק על הרחפנים, כי הסינים לא רואים את האמריקאים ברחפנים.
posted on X, I reposted it. I think a prophetic statement, which is any country that cannot manufacture its own drones is doomed to be the vassal state of any country that can. And America cannot currently manufacture its own drones. But that's it, Ken.
לזה לשקוע.
Fortunately.
סינים לא רואים את האמריקאים ביכולת רחפנית,
manufactures about 70% of all drones, and if you look at the total supply chain, China is almost 100% of drones have a supply chain dependency on China. So China is in a very strong position. But here in America, and we need to shift more of our people and resources to manufacturing. Because this is, I have a lot of respect for China, because I think China is amazing, actually. But the United States does not have such a severe dependency on China for drones and be unable to make them unless China gives us the parts, which is currently the situation. With respect to humanoid robots, I don't think there's any company in any country that can match Tesla.
לגבי הרובוטים האנושיים, אין מדינה בעולם שכרגע משווה לטסלה ברמה הטכנולוגית. אז ברמה של הרובוטים האנושיים, אמריקה מנצחת בעזרת טסלה, לגבי הרחפנים, סין לא רבה יותר אף מדינה.
But I'm confident that rank 1 will be Tesla.
Great. Well, I think that's unfortunately all the time we have for today. We appreciate all your questions and look forward to talking to you next quarter. Thank you very much and goodbye.
אוקיי, יפה מאוד. אז זה היה שיחת המשקיעים. יש פה הרבה מידע שצריך לעבד. לא קיבלנו פרטים מדויקים לרמת הרכבים החדשים, חוץ מזה שהם כן מתכננים להוציא מודלים חדשים שמן הסתם יהיו זולים יותר. לא קיבלנו עליהם פרטים, לא ציפינו לקבל פרטים טכניים יותר מדי בשיחת משקיעים. כן, יש ביוני את השיגור של הרובוטקסי, זה עדיין עומד על הקנה, והוא רואה את זה, משנה את התפיסה העולמית. מרשים ביותר, מניה כרגע על 5% למעלה בטרום מסחר. אחרי דוחות גרועים יחסית ברמה הפיננסית. אז מרגש, מרשים. בואו נראה איך זה באמת ייבנה מחר ובהמשך השבוע. וואו, וואו, כיף לחיות בתקופה כזאת, שכל יום זה ריגוש טכנולוגי חדש. אני רואה גם שטראמפ הודיע כל מיני הורדת מכסים לתחום הרכב, תוך כדי השיחת משקיעים, אז הרבה דברים קורים מאוד זמנית. אנחנו פשוט בתקופה אינטנסיבית שצריך להיות על המידע באופן חד ערכי כל הזמן, כדי לקבל תמונת מצב. אז נסיים בזה. אם השיחה הזאת תרמה לכם, נשמח אם תפרגנו, אתם יודעים איך. ויאללה, ניפגש בסרטון הבא. אני דניאל שרון, DS טסלה טוץ, אל תפסיקו לחשוב, אל תפסיקו לאהוב, ויאללה.